The afternoon sun had been warm and gentle over the bustling Los Angeles airport just moments before the scene unfolded that would change 3 lives in ways none of them could have imagined. As passengers hurried past one another, dragging suitcases, checking tickets, and rushing toward gates unaware that a young mother's strength was about to finally give out. In the middle of the crowded terminal, where people often stepped around problems rather than face them, a woman suddenly collapsed to the polished floor, her body trembling, her breaths faint and broken as if each inhale might be her last. And beside her a little boy in a red shirt dropped his stuffed airplane and screamed for help, his tiny hands shaking as he tried to shake his mother awake, his voice echoing through the hall while dozens of people slowed, stared, and hesitated, unsure or unwilling to step into someone else's suffering until a tall man in a charcoal suit, holding nothing but a coffee in one hand and a phone in the other, came to an abrupt halt that made everything inside him freeze. His name was Adrian Cole, a renowned entrepreneur known for his ruthless business instincts, a man who rarely deviated from schedules or involved himself in strangers' problems. But something in that child's desperate cry seemed to slice straight through the armor around his heart, an armor built over years of loss, long nights, and the quiet loneliness he never allowed anyone to see. Before he even processed what he was doing, his coffee hit the floor, his phone dropped into his pocket, and he ran toward the fallen woman, kneeling beside her while the boy clung desperately to her limp arm, sobbing, "Please help my mom. Please don't let her die." And Adrian felt a surge of determination so fierce it startled even him as he gently checked the woman's pulse, lifted her into his arms, and shouted for paramedics with a command in his voice that made bystanders finally scatter to give space. The woman's name, he would soon learn, was Lily Ramirez, a single mother working endless hours just to keep her son, Mateo, safe and fed, but right then all he knew was that she was frighteningly pale, her pulse too weak, her body frighteningly light as though life had been draining from her long before she hit the ground. When airport staff fumbled with their response, Adrian didn't wait. He carried Lily straight to his car outside the terminal, buckled Mateo into the back seat, and sped toward the nearest hospital with one hand gripping the steering wheel and the other firmly holding Lily's fragile fingers, silently begging her to hold on. Inside the emergency room, Mateo refused to let go of Adrian's sleeve for even a second, his eyes wide with fear, breathing unsteady as doctors rushed Lily away, and Adrian, who had walked into the airport as a stranger to both of them, suddenly found himself kneeling beside a trembling little boy, promising without hesitation that he would not leave until Mateo's mother was safe. As they waited, Adrian learned fragments of Mateo's life, how they had been living in a tiny studio apartment, how Lily worked 2 jobs cleaning offices and stocking shelves at night, how she often skipped meals so Mateo wouldn't have to, how she had been dizzy for days but kept going because missing a shift could mean losing the only income keeping them afloat. And when the doctor finally returned with news that Lily was stable but suffering from severe malnutrition and dangerous exhaustion, Adrian felt something twist inside him, an ache he hadn't felt since his own mother had collapsed decades earlier under the impossible weight of raising him alone. When Lily woke several hours later, her eyes filled with confusion before landing on Mateo, first her relief spilling out in tears before her words did, and when she finally realized a stranger had carried her, stayed with her child, and assured she received care, she tried to sit up and apologize, embarrassment and worry washing over her as she whispered that she had no way to repay him, but Adrian only shook his head, gently telling her that no one needed to earn compassion, that sometimes help was simply meant to be given. The next days blurred into an unexpected rhythm as Adrian visited the hospital morning and night, surprising himself with how naturally he fell into their orbit. He brought warm meals for Lily because the hospital trays didn't offer the nutrients she needed. He brought crayons for Mateo, who drew airplanes and superheroes on scrap paper, and he handled the complicated medical paperwork Lily was too overwhelmed to understand. She tried to protest, insisted she didn't want charity, but Adrian wasn't offering charity, he was offering presence, something quieter and far more meaningful, something he hadn't given anyone freely since his mother's passing. He found himself telling Mateo stories about when he was a boy, making the child laugh for the first time since the collapse, and he found himself noticing small details about Lily, like the soft way she hummed the same tune whenever Mateo fell asleep, or the way she apologized too quickly, as if life had taught her that she deserved little and should never take up space. On the fourth day, the hospital informed Lily she was well enough to go home, and her relief quickly turned to panic when she discovered she had missed too many shifts at one job to keep it, and the landlord had slipped an eviction notice under her door. She tried to hide the tremble in her hands, but Adrian noticed instantly, and though he knew offering too much too quickly might scare her, he also understood. She was standing on the edge of another collapse, this one emotional rather than physical. That same evening, without fanfare or pressure, he offered to help her find stable work, something with regular hours and fair pay, a job at his own company where she could build a safer future. Lily insisted she wasn't qualified, insisted she didn't deserve such an opportunity, but Adrian saw in her the same determination his own mother had, strength forged through hardship, and he assured her she could learn anything with time, and that stability wasn't a handout, it was a lifeline. After a long silence, she finally accepted, not out of dependence but out of a quiet, trembling courage. The following weeks became a new beginning none of them expected as Lily adjusted to her new job. Mateo flourished in the childcare program Adrian arranged for him, and Adrian found himself increasingly drawn to their laughter, their presence, the warmth they unknowingly brought to his once sterile, work-obsessed life. He began spending evenings with them, sometimes helping Mateo build toy airplanes, sometimes sharing slow, comfortable conversations with Lily about fears, hopes, and the silent battles they both carried. And slowly the walls Adrian had built around himself softened, the hardness in his routines cracked open by the simple joy of belonging somewhere again. One evening, as the city lights flickered through Lily's small living room, Mateo tugged on Adrian's sleeve, climbed into his lap without hesitation, and whispered, "Can you stay? Mom smiles more when you're here," and Lily, standing in the doorway with tired but grateful eyes, didn't speak, but the emotion in her gaze said what words could not. Adrian felt something inside him settle, something he hadn't felt in years home, not made of walls or wealth but of connection, and he gently wrapped his arms around Mateo while reaching his hand out toward Lily, who stepped forward as though drawn by something deeper than gratitude or obligation. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the hum of the city outside, the three of them understood that kindness wasn't just a gesture. It was the beginning of a new life, a new family, and a chance none of them knew they had been waiting for. And if you felt the weight of this story in your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, because kindness truly grows when it is shared. And if you're still reading, comment below. Kindness lives here. So we know our community is filled with people who still believe in compassion.